Adventureland in Iowa dropped an interesting image on their Facebook page a few days ago. The park posted an image of a knight about to decapitate a dragon with the caption, "Coming in 2021." So what does that mean? For one, that means the dragon is toast. The park's Hopkins looper, that was celebrating its 30th anniversary this year, is done. Images have popped up on Facebook showing the coaster being dismantled. In this video, I plan to speculate why Dragon is being removed, what could replace it, and give my review on this roller coaster. To start, why is Dragon being removed? There are usually 3 reasons why a ride is removed. 1. The park needs space for a new addition, and Adventureland appears to have developed almost all of their land, so this appears to be a possibility. 2. The ride is pricey to operate or needs a costly repair. I cannot speak to the Dragon's maintenance costs, but the ride didn't look the best last year. The track was rusting and the paint was chipping. For a park that in general looked fantastic, it was odd seeing a ride as ugly as the Dragon. And 3, the ride is unpopular. Dragon is a ride that often fares quite poorly in any roller coaster poll. In the last Mitch Hawker poll in 2013, it placed 349th out of 361 steel coasters. That is awful. In the most recent TPR coaster poll, it was the 4th worst steel coaster in the world. Most seem to find the ride unbearably rough, but more on that later. So what do I think will replace Dragon? Based on the removal starting right before the 2020 season, it either means that the ride needed a costly repair, or they plan to reuse the Dragon station or footprint for the 2021 edition. I'm hoping it's the latter. The Dragon has an extensive queue line, so it would make sense to reuse that building. So the question then becomes, what replaces it, and will it use the entirety of the Dragon's footprint? Looking at their lineup, Adventureland has 2 big gaps in their roller coaster collection. 1, an airtime-based coaster. The park has 2 wooden coasters, and typically these rides are great sources of airtime, but neither Tornado nor Outlaw give much airtime. The park's best airtime can be had on Monster, but that ride is really more about the beyond vertical drop and incredible hang time. The other gap is a launch coaster. The park currently has none, and there currently isn't one in all of Iowa, although the new Lost Island theme park will have the relocated Cannon opening in 2022. The closest current launch coaster is Steel Venom at Valley Fair, so there's a good chance a launch coaster would be unique to most of Adventureland's patrons. If you look at the Dragon's plot of land, it travels down a thin stretch of land adjacent to the pond with a double helix at the far end. Only the start and end actually pass over the water. If the park wants to keep the Dragon's replacement mostly on land as well, I think there are 2 possibilities. My hope is that the new ride uses the entirety of the Dragon's layout, as this would give a unique custom layout for a roller coaster. The Dragon had 2,250 feet of track, so there is enough room for a decent-sized coaster. If they go the route of a custom launch coaster, I do suspect the coaster would leave and enter the station opposite of what it currently does. This would allow the park to build the longest possible launch track. The layout could then loop around the lake over a series of airtime hills or inversions. If they build a coaster with a traditional lift, I imagine it would follow a course very similar to the current Dragon, just with improved elements. The second option would be a more economical approach, and it would be to get a shuttle coaster like a Skyrocket 2 that reuses the Dragon station and never passes out over the water. And the ride that comes to mind is a premier ride, Skyrocket 2. The ride would be unique to the region and dramatically enhance Adventureland's skyline without breaking the bank. A Skyrocket 2 is in line with the cost of Monster and Phoenix, and that would leave the land on the opposite side of the lake free for a future attraction. So, what are my thoughts about the Dragon? Believe it or not, I actually enjoyed the coaster. I only visited Adventureland once, and that was in July of last year. And Dragon was honestly my second favorite ride at the park after Monster. And I thought it rode very similarly to some of the old Schwarzkopf coasters. So why did I like the Dragon? I just didn't find the coaster rough. Most people point to the pre-lift being the ride's Achilles heel. The first few bunny hills were innocent and perfectly smooth. They just felt like a slower RMC pre-lift. And that was followed by a slow turn before the lift, and that's where things got interesting. The train vibrated violently and felt like it was going to fall apart, but at no point did I hit my head in the restraint. And a key thing to note is that I was tall enough that my head was above the restraint, so maybe that saved me from headbanging there and later in the ride. But even still, I don't really remember being thrown around much after the first drop. As for the main ride, you have a very slow lift, and you then turn 90 degrees to the right and go down a shallow first drop. That's followed by the highlight of the ride, 2 back-to-back vertical loops, and they are very forceful. They are reminiscent of the Schwarzkopf loops we all love. This was also similar to how I felt about the vertical loop on Desert Storm at Castles and Coasters. Hopkins hasn't built many roller coasters, but their vertical loops really pack a punch. After the 2 loops, Dragon cruises through back-to-back helixes. The first is a really forceful downward helix combining positive G's with some laterals due to the banking. The second helix isn't quite as forceful as it's a slower uphill one, but has a little kink at the top that gives a faint pop of airtime before you hit the brake run. So what would I rate Adventureland's Dragon? Believe it or not, I'd give it a 7. I genuinely liked this looper, and I would take it over a majority of the old Arrow loopers. I know Hopkins often gets a bad rap, but this coaster tracks much better than I expected, and it pulled some strong forces. But do I mind seeing this coaster removed? No, not at all. While I enjoyed Dragon, I realize most do not share that opinion. Dragon is the definition of a supporting coaster for me. So if the new for 2021 attraction is an improvement, and I suspect it will if the park is teasing it this early, Adventureland will have a strong 1-2 punch with this new attraction and monster. So what are your thoughts on the Dragon? Did you actually like this roller coaster like me, or were you in the boat that really didn't like the ride? And in general, are you excited to see something new coming to Adventureland? Thank you for listening, and subscribe for more reviews and amusement park news here at Canopy Coaster.